Thank you very much, Amy. From our house to your house or your place of employment, wherever you are today, welcome to this webinar on Reach and Match. One of the great things is we're going to be talking about learning today, but we're also going to talk a little bit about play as well. So our time today, we're going to start off with our introductions, talk about our objectives. We're going to review Reach and Match, all the research and background of it. We'll address what Reach and Match actually is, and we'll show you how it works. There's one ACVREP credit available for you today. We do have closed captioning. As Amy already mentioned, make sure you put your questions for us in the chat. We'll get to as many of those as possible. All right, thank you. So here's a photo of the Reach and Match kit available from APH, price $1,019. It is quota eligible. The catalog number is listed here. Sometimes that's the best way for folks to find it on our site. And let's take a look and see who is presenting for us today. First, Mandy Lau. She's the founder, director of Reach and Match. We have Kari Landis. She's a teacher of students with visual impairments. She's with the Low Incidence Consulting Service in Wisconsin. And then Annette Zaiontz, Early Learning Sensory Support Program in North Carolina. She's a certified orientation and mobility specialist and also teacher of students with visual impairments. We have 3 objectives today. So we're going to learn how to describe 3 features of the Reach and Match kit. We'll identify 7 learning outcomes of incorporating the kit into instruction. And we'll examine educational scenarios, 3 of those, in which play is involved. I said we'd have play, and we do. So let's turn it now over to Mandy, who's going to begin the presentation.
Thank you so much, Paul. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Cool. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Mandy. I'm the founder and designer of Reach and Match. And I'm very happy to be here to share Reach and Match to you guys and thanks APH for this wonderful opportunity. So Reach and Match was developed for my master's research in Monash University in Melbourne, Australia. And lots of people ask me, why did I start this research? So the research was started when I firstly discovered the beauty of Braille, because I found Braille is such a beautiful and effective writing system. It gives blind people independent life and is very crucial to literacy, and literacy is crucial to employment. But at the same time, I also find that the use of Braille is decreasing around the world, and it due to many social and cultural reasons. For example, stigma, replacement by technology, and also the mainstreaming system, which blind and visually impaired children move to mainstream school and where they do not have enough resources or qualified teachers to teach them Braille. So that was the first question I asking myself was, how am I able to help blind and visually impaired children to develop an interesting exposure to Braille? So I start working with blind and visually impaired children, and I found that these children also have additional needs, such as autism, intellectual disability, or physical delay. And I find these functional skills are really important for children to develop, such as sensory skills, spatial awareness, bodily identification, and motor skills. And these skills and literacy, they are all connected. So that is the reason why I need to incorporate sensory play into my design. And what is inclusion? I find this diagram is very simple, but at the same time very smart to illustrate the difference between exclusion, separation, integration, and inclusion. When we're putting blind children to a mainstream school, are we integrating them or we are including them? I think this is a very important question we need to ask. We know inclusion is very important, but at the same time, it's extremely challenging to achieve, especially among young children. How can we teach young children about inclusion? So that is the reason why I designed Reach and Match. And Reach and Match is all about inclusive play. It's fun for all children. So that's why we can include everyone. So the design achieves three main design goals. The first one is, this is a celebration of Braille. It's combining literacy, sensory elements, and interactive features. Second, it focuses on fun, exploration, active movement, which joining children with different abilities to learn and engage equally. Lastly, it is a system with a specialized program for educators to teach children with 7 learning outcomes through play-based activities. So what is Reach and Match? As you can see from the screen, it's a double-sized sensory play. It has 4 large sensory play mats. One side, it got like 4 distinctive patterns, so children can learn about matching colors, textures, shapes, and sounds. And I also incorporate the concept of mobility symbols. For example, you can see the round dots. It means that has a sign. It means stop. So children can learn about that. And the yellow stripes is a directional sign. So we can teach the young blind children. You will come across these symbols when you go to society. And for the other side, when you're joining the mats together, it creates a wide recessive path. And children can develop motor skills, direction, and spatial concepts. And the learning kits also include 26 alphabet tiles, and each tile has both Braille and print. So children with and without vision impairment, they can all learn together. And all the tiles, it has like total 4 shapes, and each shape has a distinctive sound as well.
So what we are going to do at this point is launch a poll. We really want this to be interactive. We want to hear about what it is that you have to say. So hold on and let me bring this up. We would love for you to share your experience using the Reach and Match Learning Kit. We have 3 options for you. We would love to know, do you have access to the Reach and Match? And are you actively using it with children? Maybe you're just aware that it exists, but you've never had an opportunity to use it. And maybe you're coming into this webinar and you know nothing about this product, so all of this is new information for you. We have people coming in and giving us their response. And so far, the majority of people don't know anything about this product, which makes us delighted that you're with us today, because we know that you're going to walk away with a lot of information and a lot of inspiration as well of how this tool can be used with students that you work with. So I'm going to go ahead and end polling and just share out those results so that you can see it. That 82%, this is a brand new thing for you to learn about. So we are glad that you are here.
Okay, so I'll continue my presentation. So 1 learning kits include 4 large double-sized sensory play mats, 26 Braille and print tiles, and 1 round cushion bag, as you see in the photo. So this bag you can hold and store like all the tiles together, but for some exercise and games, it also have a special functions as well. And 1 portable bag, so teachers can carry the learning kits to different classroom or bring to children's home. And also 1 inclusive learning program activity menu. And Reach and Match can make into different horizontal and vertical configurations, as you can see. And the mats are expandable, so you can connecting more mats together and you can create a really long path, or you can make them into like a cubby house or a maze, and you can play it with a large group of children, and it have lots of fun. And the Reach and Match inclusive learning program was developed with the early childhood educators and specialists, and it focused on 7 learning outcomes. They are braille and print learning, cognitive skills, sensory integration, sense of satisfaction, language enrichment, body movement, and also social interaction. So I'm going to give you a little more details about how this program works. So it divided into 2 sessions. So one session is the exercise and activities, and the second session is the games. So for the 7 learning outcomes, each learning outcome will have different skills. So for one example, the learning outcomes of cognitive skills, it includes sorting, matching, counting, sequencing, and memory training. And each of the skill, we design different exercise to help children to learn that skills. And for the second session, it includes 16 games. And each game, it includes different difficulty level, range from level 1 to level 5. And also each game includes a combination of different learning outcomes. So the teachers can choose different games to play with their children. And I'm going to give you one example of our games.
Game 8. Boom, de clap, de clap. For this game, you will need one reach and match learning kit for up to 10 students to play. The difficulty level for this game is level 2. Have the students sit in a circle around the teacher. Using one or more tiles, create a rhythmic pattern for students to listen to. In this example, the teacher shakes circle tile first, then the square tile, and then the circle tile. Instruct students to reproduce the same rhythmic pattern with the tiles after listening. Additional ideas. Instead of the teacher, have a student create a rhythmic pattern for other students. The learning outcomes in this game include auditory skills, fine motor skills, memory training, and demonstrating skills.
Cool. Okay, so when we provide training to the teachers, we highly encourage the teachers to provide enough time for students to explore the learning kits before teaching them all the exercise and games, because it's really important to develop their imagination, curiosity, and also creativity. For example, you can ask them, what do you feel, or how do you want to play? And you will be really amazed by their response. So for example, I remember many years ago, I test with a child, which you can see from the first picture. He is 4 years old and he's blind. And I remember he was sitting there and touched every part of the learning kits very into like details. And he's sitting there touching them and for 20 minutes, and he was like keep talking to himself. And I remember he asked me, how big are these mats? And I did not answer him. I just say, can you figure it out? And I remember he was sitting at the corner of the mat and sliding himself from one edge to and the other edge. And in order to learn about the whole size of the mat. And I found this is really interesting and also really great experience for the child to explore and also to figure out by themselves. And also another example, when I was testing with a school for the blind, and you can see in the photos, there were 2 boys. They actually make the learning kit into a 3D configuration, and that was almost like 7 years ago. And that was the first time I actually realized that we can make them into 3D. And I just found this kid can taught me a lot. And you know, they are actually playing the shops game. One child inside the shop, and he was a shopkeeper and selling things and asking his friend who is blind to buy the things, which is using the different shapes of tiles. And his friend was like counting the shapes and tiles. And I was just so surprised at how they play, and I found that is the best experience for me. And also, there was one time when I was introducing this program to 20 nursery schools in Hong Kong. There were some students, when they shake the tiles, they told me that it sounds like rice, or some children told me, oh, it sounds like raining. It's just very interesting to see children, they come up with different ideas, and also they ask me question about what's these dots about, and why there's dot there next to the print. And then we explain to the sighted children that this is called Braille, and they start asking question about what is Braille and why people need to learn Braille. And I find that is how inclusion starts, when students, they start asking these questions. And also you can see they just playing reach and match with their different body parts, and the teachers start to go with the flow to let the students to create these ideas and play with them. And also we have lots of parents use at home as well, because the parents find it's quite challenging to teach the students or their children with the skills. So reach and match will be a perfect starter program for them to play. And it also provides lots of parent-child bonding activities and also sibling playtime activities as well. And you see there was one photo in the middle. There was a father and also a son. They were sitting inside the copy house made by reach and match, and there was they were having a story time. And this is really lovely, because we found lots of children with autism, they love to be enclosed, and they found that it's very calm, and they will quite often to chat with their parents inside the copy house. So to conclude, this is the reach and match features. The program is a research-based and tested with childhood ed specialists for both mainstream and special needs settings. And teachers can use it for individual learning and group play, and with 40 activities. And it's very easily adapted to the school curriculums and also early intervention service. And we also include the easy to read instruction manual for teachers to use it in the classrooms. And the product is very high quality, durable, and it lasts for many years. And I'm also very happy to share with you that the Reach and Match has won a number of international awards in the areas of inclusion, education, and assistive technology. And last year, we are very honored to receive an endorsement from the Australian Government Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade with its successful project outcome. So we have applied Reach and Match in different areas, including preschools and primary schools, specialist schools, early intervention service, families, libraries, and communities. And more excitingly, we are supporting children in humanitarian and emergencies as well. So it's our vision that we are able to deliver the inclusive learning to the most vulnerable children in the world. And since 2017, we partnered with the Australian government and children relief organizations such as Save the Children and Plan International to support the children in emergency settings and humanitarian areas. And so far, we deliver the program to Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, and also Philippines. And our program was part of their early childhood development project. And also we provide therapeutic support for the children in emergencies. And it always is our passion, and we will continue our effort in this area. And if you know anyone who will be interested to partner with us, please let us know. And we work with the Save the Children to conduct monitoring and evaluation for over 18 months. And we are very happy with the results, and we received a very positive project outcomes, and very happy to share with you that the program has demonstrated the improvements in children's learning outcomes, including physical, cognitive, early literacy and numeracy skills, children's social and emotional well-beings, and children's participation in schooling, especially children with disabilities, and also teachers' competence in inclusive pedagogy and skills to adjust activities based on the learning needs for all children. So thanks so much for listening to my presentation, and here is my contact details. If you got any questions, feel free to ask me. Thanks so much.
That was great background information, Mandy. Thank you for walking us through the thought process, the development. It was inspiring to also hear how awards have been given to this product, and it's a real privilege to be able for APH to be a distributor of this. And so while we get ready to set up, you've all now heard just kind of the foundational information, and we thought it would be a treat to be able to now also give some application of teachers who have used this and can share those experiences. So while we get ready for Kari to join us here and to get her screen sharing, I'm going to launch a poll for you on another question. And this question here is, what feature or features of the reach and match strike you as being most beneficial for child learning? You can pick more than one if that be the case, but really want to hear about what strikes you in thinking about using this for instruction and how this can impact student learning. So lots of information is coming in right now, and while that comes in, we'll let it go for another moment. We have 98 reporting, and the number keeps going up. So glad to have that participation. All of these polls really help us at APH, but also Mandy, the developer, to know what our teachers and educators thinking about. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share out. We had 137 out of 203 that gave us some input, and things were really running close together. So it definitely seems 75% reported that seeing that value of supporting development of body concepts and motor skills. A close second is supporting that communication and social skills, but not far behind, supporting that Braille literacy skills, followed by having that buy-in, that extra encouragement of knowing that you would be using a tool that has research-based and that it's well-designed activities. So we are thankful for that. And what's exciting now is that you will now have the opportunity of hearing how those literacy skills played out with children, incorporating those motor skills, the social, the communication, all of that. So I'm going to stop sharing and pass things over to Kari.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. So mine is kind of a reach and match for pre-Braille students or beginners. I'm a teacher from Southern Wisconsin. This is my 5th year of teaching, and I work at Low Incidence Consulting Services. I serve ages 3 to 21. So I'm kind of all over the board right now. Let's go to the next one. So I'm going to talk about 2 students today that I've used this with. I absolutely love the reach and match. The first student that I use it with he is 4 years old. He is a pre-Braille student and has multiple impairments, including a hearing impairment. And so this has been a game changer for him because we can work on multiple things. His goals or focus areas that we work on are using hands and textual skills to sort and match textures, independently scooting and crawling towards an object, peer, or activity of interest, and localizing sounds. So of course we can work on all of those things with the reach and match. One of the things I love is the texture side of the reach and match. That is our main focus for this student because he is very textually defensive. So this is awesome. I love that they have the cushion, but also I like to take the cushion out of the center of it when it's set up in 4 squares, like in the picture here. And then what we would do is have the student sit in the middle. And then the student was able to initiate exploration and touching of textures on his own. And we have found that by letting him do that, he is more likely to engage and not be upset about it. So the nice part about him being in the middle and having the cutout circle is that no matter where he went, he had to touch something. And it could have a different texture or the same texture, but he was the one initiating that. And that was a lot more helpful because if you touched his hand, he had associated with that, you're going to make him touch something and he doesn't want to because that makes him nervous. So by letting him do it himself, he became much more confident and familiar with his surroundings. Also, because the student is in 4K, they did a lot of play-based activities like Mandy was talking about for inclusion in this. And so this was great during free choice time. We would always have it scheduled out on the mat. And a couple of his peers would come and play with us. And what we would do is each peer would get so many tiles. We would talk about how does the tile feel. They would hand it to him to feel. We would shake it and say, what does it sound like? And then after everybody talked about what it sounds like and what it feels like, we would work together to match it. And so then we would go hand over hand and touch each square. Now I said that he doesn't like hand over hand. So what I meant is hand under hand. So I would put my hand under his and he would touch my hand and he's okay with that kind of touch. And we would touch each tile or square, foam square, and then describe it from there and determine which one it matched to. And then either the peer would get to do it or the student would get to put the tile on the matching square. And that would just be the game that we would do with our 4K kiddos. And of course, 4Kers don't have the longest attention span. So after that, friends would switch out and we get to have all kinds of tasks for them. Another thing that I really liked about this is the sound that comes along with the pieces. A goal of the student is to orient to sound or activities. And by having them shake his DHH, or the sound when you shake them, the DHH teacher was able to use those tiles, not only to have him orient and look or turn his head to where the sound is coming from, she could also have him try and crawl towards them or reach with them and then shake them himself and explore that way. So that was really awesome for another way for a provider to use this. Also, what we would do is when he's in the center of the mats, when they're put in a foam square or 4 square, we would have him touch each texture and say, this is to your left, this is to your right, this is behind you, this is off to kitty corner from you or in front of you. So we could work on all those different spatial awareness techniques and also terms. And then again, he got to explore independently, which again is so awesome for him because he was not yet mobile. So allowing him to do that was great. And also he was in a wheelchair, so we would have to help him get to the floor. And by finding the mat, he would run over the mat with his wheelchair and notice how it went up because of the height. And that's how we found out where we were on the carpet. So it's good for him to explore that way. The second student I used it with is in 6th grade and in middle school age in 12. He is pre-Braille, totally blind and nonverbal autism. So this student was in a classroom or had his own workroom, and he would work on sorting or matching objects with similar textual attributes, exposed to and interact with a variety of learning tools with different textual attributes, and use tactile picture cards to make a choice throughout his daily routine. again, we kind of use the same strategies with this student. We would set it up in the 4 squares and he would get to orient to the task himself. He would use human guide to get to the edge of the reach and match mat. And then once he would feel it with his feet, he would get down on the ground and crawl to the center circle. And that's how he knew he was in the middle of where he needed to be and he was oriented correctly. And then again, we went over where all the textures were within his space of what was to the left, to the right, behind him, in front of him. We use this really to increase his textual awareness skills in discerning the different textures and explaining them. The student really likes to scratch and scrub when he's feeling braille or any texture. So it was really nice to use this because he was able to practice not doing that, but if that did come out, he didn't ruin the materials either. Whereas if you have textured paper, that tends to bend right away. So it was very durable when it comes to that. We also worked on matching the tiles to the textures. And this student really likes music or sound, so that was great for him to have them in his hand and we'd shake them and listen to them and he'd get to explore them, the tiles himself. And then we would do hand over hand because the student did tolerate hand over hand. And we would explore where all the textures were, again, talking about those orientation concepts. And then we would match the tile. When we'd find the one that matches, I would take my hand off and say, okay, put it on the matching one, and he would get to do it himself. The other thing that we worked on is this was something his special education teacher could work on him with as well, because she felt confident in using the materials, even though they had Braille on it. I have a lot of special ed teachers that think they need to know Braille in order to do anything with it. So she would work on the alphabet with him. They would turn it over and use the side where you can put the shapes and Braille letters up. And they would work on putting it in alphabetical order. And then once they did that, hand over hand, they would touch each letter and sing the alphabet song. So that would work on with his tracking left to right, awareness of the alphabet, and also matching shapes into their correct icon, which was really helpful for him. The other thing that she would work on, like I said, during math is the different shapes and how a square has four corners and 4 sides, and a triangle has 3 sides and 3 corners. So it's also building those kind of concepts as well. If the student didn't always like to get on the floor if we were having a sensory overload day. So the nice thing about this mat breaking apart is we would take one texture at a time, and we'd take one square and put it on the table. And then what I would do is bring all of the tiles and put them 3 up at a time and say, find the one that matches our foam square. And then he'd have to pick out the one that matched. So that way we didn't have to be on the floor and we didn't have to use all the tiles or all the squares at once, which is really nice when it breaks apart like that. And that's all I got.
Thank you so much, Kari. I loved being able to hear how you differentiated for 2 different students. It helped to give some really great ideas and showed how versatile things can be and that it can be customized to meet different student needs. I also loved when I heard you mention about the math curriculum, how you were able to infuse these concepts within the core curriculum. So I appreciate so much of thinking through and being forthcoming to share all of what you have learned about using this so that everybody else can gather ideas just from listening to what you had to share. So thank you for that. So we are going to get ready and hear about another application. Okay, Annette, thank you.
Hi, my name is Annette Zaiontz. I serve as an orientation and mobility specialist and teacher for the visually impaired for the North Carolina Early Learning Sensory Support Program for children with visual impairments. We are a state program that provides direct instruction and specially designed instruction to children ages birth to 5 with visual and hearing impairments at no cost to families. We serve children in natural environments, including homes, childcare and community settings, and schools throughout our state. The ELSSP educates children, families, and other service providers about best practices for promoting positive outcomes. I'd like to introduce you to Carson. He is now 3.5 years old and has a visual condition called Leber's congenital amaurosis. As a baby, he worked best in darkened rooms with either light box or lighted objects to gain visual attention. But as he got older, his visual skills improved, so it became evident that he did better in outdoor and well-lit environments. So the mat was introduced to him at the age of 2 in collaboration with his TVI. We began introducing him to the shapes and sounds and textures, and then allowed him to move to explore the mat with guidance, and engaged him more in more purposeful activities such as tactile and auditory discrimination, identifying shapes, matching the shape to the correct slot or textured mat. Exploring and locating the different mats encouraged gross motor skills and helping him to remain oriented to where each piece was. So next, I would like to show you some video segments of our time with Carson from the time we introduced it to him. The first segment, so we're gonna have to flip screens to get them to show you. So this first segment demonstrates how the product was introduced to Carson using familiar texture cards that we had already been working with and relating them to the appropriate mat while we removed the mats from the case. And then we moved from introduction of all pieces to setting it up with the textured side up quickly and began working on matching of textures and incorporating directional and positional concepts.
Lines, circles, lines,
I'm going to pause for just a moment just to share and give that verbal feedback. So Carson is sitting on the mat with Annette, you being the teacher in front of him, and she is, as he's touching different parts of the mat, she's pairing it with that terminology, with those texture words to describe what he's touching. And so there's a lot of exploration right now.
circles. Carson, feel the lines, the circles. Yeah. Put it on the circles. And your hands on the circles. Oh, now you're in the middle.
Okay, so the next, I'm going to describe kind of what was going on. The next segment shows us working on more matching of textures. Then he discovered by throwing the pieces that each piece made a sound when it hit the floor, and he really liked to drop things on the floor a lot. So I'll let you watch this.
Yeah. So the lines, circles, circles. Can you put the lines? Oh. You hear that? Let's feel. Feel. Let's feel the lines. Goes on lines and circles. Circles. You want to do it? Can you match them? Put it on the circle.
Okay, so the next video, we had moved to working on locating given areas of the mats with the shape side up. But I want to point out how Dad began to participate by providing verbal cues to direct Carson, but also allowing him time to problem solve. Participation and verbal feedback from the adults is always encouraged when using this product or working with them at all. And we feel it's extremely important for parent and teacher participation.
Find the squares. Square. Good. Where's the circle? Where are the circles? These are triangles. Triangles.
The circles are behind you.
Can you reach behind you? Turn around. Reach behind. Behind you. Back here. There's the circles.
Okay, so the last video I want to show is when we introduced this mat to Carson outside. He was allowed to walk along the pieces and guided as they were laid out in a linear pattern in the driveway. Part of the reasons we did this was introducing him or to help him remain on a designated pathway, but also to help him notice surface changes as he crossed over each mat.
Keep going. Turn. Oh, you're off. Let's go.
All right, so I want to point out some of the challenges that our staff encountered so far and how we problem solved each of them involves size and portability. This is a large product, so when it's all put together, it makes it difficult to utilize all formats together in some homes and classrooms. However, if and when possible, it can be set up to use outdoors or only using 1 or 2 mats at a time. The carrying case is handy, but the product is heavy, so we've implemented the idea of using rolling crate to make it more easily portable, especially when all the pieces of the mat are needed. Some ways that teachers in our program have adapted instruction are by being attentive to the child's verbal and body language responses, which allows the instructor to adjust the activity as needed. Letting the child be your guide as to how far you go with instruction, but be sure to challenge them and encourage the experiential learning. For the student shown in the video, I had to be aware of and adjust how I asked him questions in order to gain information about his level of understanding during our activities. The pieces may need to be positioned to accommodate for physical limitations, lighting, or even sound for hearing impaired children. Challenges with other students involve the use of only 1 or 2 mats at a time due to it being too much stimulation or expectations from the child. For example, we began with the circle mat and pieces and then brought in others gradually and 1 at a time as the child's abilities improved. Be sure to allow plenty of time to build familiarity with the pieces and activities, even if this has to be done over the course of several lessons. Making it inclusive by including other members of the family or classroom is a fun way to engage the child in learning and enhancing the experience. And I want to just remind everybody that it's very important to make sure you keep it fun. Here are some examples of how the product was adapted as it was used in different situations. The picture on the top left demonstrates how a teacher and family made a red light, green light game out of it to include their siblings. The mat is laid out in a continuous pathway with children standing on each color. And the picture in the top middle shows a family, including siblings, utilizing the entire mat as a giant square and circle mat in the game that, that were created for the family. In the top right picture, only the square and circle mats were used during introduction of the mat. This was that way, so it was a slow introduction and not all the pieces at one time. The bottom two pictures show how it was set up outside for better lighting when I worked with Carson. This product we found is a great way to incorporate up to 6 areas of the ECC skills into their goals. Those areas being compensatory, orientation and mobility, social interaction, recreation and leisure, sensory efficiency, and self-determination. So for example, if they're working on sensory efficiency or O&M, and their goal is to increase knowledge of directional and positional concepts, then you can have the child visually scan to locate specific colored mats while modeling for a parent or teacher how to use the effective language needed, such as the red mat is behind you or beside you. The handbook we found is very well written and very easy to understand. It provides learning outcomes, games, and instructional methods on how to work with a child using the product. Some ideas of how we as a program train staff to use the product are by highlighting teachers using it with their students during video demonstrations and staff meetings, regional trainings, and in our newsletters. It's also important to involve parents, teachers, and other support staff, such as therapists and daycare workers who work with the child to help them gain other ideas and perspectives on how the product can be used to reach student goals. I just want to say that many of our teachers in our program have loved using this product and found it very versatile to use with children of many different levels of abilities.
Thank you so much, Annette, for sharing. What I really appreciated in your content that you shared was how you were able to customize the product to meet those unique learning needs of your students. But what I also really liked as well was hearing about how this tool helped students achieve their goals, whether it's an IEP goal or it's an IFSP goal. I loved hearing how this tool helped meet those goals and was maybe even a tool that helped with the progress monitoring of how they achieved it. It was great, so thank you for that. And what I'm really happy about too is we have spare time for question and answer. And I admit, being behind the scenes, I was driving the PowerPoint and didn't get to really delve in deep into what kinds of things have been surfacing in the chat. But I do have one question, Mandy, that I would love to be able to hear from you on, if it's okay. We had a participant early on who wanted to hear more about the guidebook that comes with it. Perhaps there's activities that are a part of it or lesson plan ideas. I'm not sure. Would you be able to speak on that for a moment so that we're better familiar?
So the activity menu is part of the learning kit. So is that your questions? Like,
yes, and what are some of the components of it? When we get the manual, are there things that will be giving us ideas about how to set up activities or lesson plan ideas?
Yes, sure. So the activity book, it have like ideas about how, so the introduction of the whole learning kit itself, and it talk about 7 learning outcomes and separate into 2 sessions. One session is simple exercise and activity to learn to achieve each of the learning outcomes. And the second session is all about games. And the games, it suggests about like how many children you can play on this game, and also what's the difficulty level of the game. It ranges from level 1 to level 5, and also what are the learning outcomes you can learn from this game.
That's great. Thank you. That's helpful. I know that there's even people who are participating that are so intrigued by even the manual. They want to know if that manual is something that can be, you know, as like, I guess maybe from APH as a replacement part. I do know that the manual link Jim put in the chat box. So if you want to extract that, there you go. And it doesn't cost anything for that. We would love if you have any other questions. Take this time. It's not often that we have 2 expert teachers with us to share about a product, but let alone having the creator of a product be able to help us answer questions that you might have. So take a moment, think about it. Put something in the chat box for us. And we're glad to know that there are some people who have been able to use their federal quota funds to purchase this. That's great. Is there anything, while we wait for some questions, hopefully to go in, Mandy, would you be able just to talk about the Braille that's on the product? There was a question wanting to have idea about the size of it.
Yes.
What can you share?
Yes. So I think this is a great question. When I was doing my research in organization and also schools for the blind, I've been asked a lot by these questions. So also this is not a Braille is like not a standard Braille size. As you can see, it's quite big and it's really visible, so children can see from it. So I was like building like different prototypes to test on the size, and also trying to use the standard size to see like how we are able to make this work. And I really think about the objective of the Reach and Match, because we really want to have an interesting exposure for children to develop Braille. So we found lots of blind children and with vision impairment. We test with them. They can see the Braille dot. It really encouraged them to asking the question, oh, what is this? And they can see the dots and they can really feel that size, so they can asking question about the Braille and interested to learn about the Braille. And when we test with the blind children, for children they do not know any Braille, or children they already knowing Braille, when they learn about this underline, and then they start learning about the size of these 6 dots, and they know about the combination, and then they can also read about the Braille of the alphabet as well. So that is the main reason why I keep the size of this Braille, but not using a standard size. I found that was like a challenge for me to that time, like struggling for me to which design that I should choose. But after like testing with like schools and also teachers, and we just found that it's much more effective for them to learn about this, and also to encourage them to see that dot. Yeah.
That is great. Loved hearing that background and the rationale that you had. Wanted to ask you, because we are living in a culture and in a world now about cleaning and sanitizing, is there any special direction that you would offer, Mandy, or anything that we need to be aware of with cleaning this? Or
Yeah, so for the plastic and also the mat itself, actually it's quite easy to clean. You can use a little bit detergent, and then first of all, you can have 2 ways to clean. One is just like wet wipes to wipe it, and the second way is you can use a cloth and soap with a little bit detergent and then clean it. And then it's because I always bring the Reach and Match to different areas, and I always like clean it after exhibiting or showcasing. So it's quite easy to clean, I would say. And the plastic as well. The plastic is not really the plastic itself is not easy to get dirty, to be honest. But the mat itself, for example, if you step on it and then and maybe it's dusty, and then you just white
Okay.
with it will be fine. Yeah.
Thank you. That is great. I think that we have time to sneak in one other, and this is not necessarily a question, it's an idea. But while we have a few seconds left, someone had posted and asked about extra letter tiles. Wouldn't it be great to have extra letter tiles available to purchase to be able to spell a child's name? Will you close us on that thought or idea?
Yes, that is a great question. And also we actually in Australia, we also offer extra tiles for like people to buy it. So I think this is something that I can discuss with APH to make this work. And I think that is a lovely idea because in Australia, for example, one school, they have like two to three sets for the whole school to play, and they often have like 6 sets of tiles so they can play spelling games. And so it just have so many ways to play.
I love that. And you never know when ideas come forward in the chat box. So thank you, Mandy, and thank you, Kari and Annette, for sharing with us today. We have really benefited just from being able to better understand this product.